Here we go. All right. Welcome back, everyone. This is Denis Horrigan from Connecticut Wealth Management. I have with me Kevin Leahy, who is the president and CEO of Connecticut Wealth Management, and we are honored to have with us today Ari Santiago, who is the president and CEO of IT Direct, which is an IT technology success company with offices in Hartford and New Haven. Ari, thanks for joining us, buddy. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ari.
Denis, absolutely my pleasure. Or Kevin, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Well, we know, Kevin and I were talking today, we know how busy that you are. We know that I'm sure call volume has been pretty crazy. So seriously, how has your world changed in the last few weeks?
Well, listen, I'll tell you what, if I ever wanted to know what it was like to be the belle of the ball, I now have found out. It has been very interesting to see that, what we do, and we've always known, and most companies have known how important information technology is to their success. But now more than ever, when we're forced to work remotely and not like for a couple of days from a snowstorm or a couple of people are out sick, but looking at creative ways to keep our businesses productive, to keep driving value to customers and keep bringing in revenue so we can keep our people employed. Those things are requiring technology more than ever. And so, as you can imagine, the phones are literally ringing off the hook. We've been running at 200 to 300% of normal volume for the last several weeks.
So Ari, so if you get specific for a minute, I'm sure you have some horror stories, unfortunately, but how are some of your clients best using technology right now to work with one another, to work with customers, with clients?
It's funny, Kevin, I actually, we have so many more success stories and really don't have any, horror stories in terms of that. Just from the number one thing that's the most important thing to us, which is people's physical health. We've been really blessed that from the people that we've been working with and our own team, there's been hardly any kind of COVID-19 infections. And so obviously hope to keep it that way. And using technology for social distancing is a part of that. But I think what we're looking at is two things. One of the best successes we've seen is, necessity being the mother of invention. All of a sudden, people are so much more open-minded to using this technology. And I don't know if they are more comfortable or just pretending to be more comfortable or just kind of being more open-minded because they're forced to do it. But they've just been so open. And I think, that's been very helpful in getting it deployed across the board. And so did you want specific technologies that we're using? I don't know if I answered your question entirely.
I want your top 80 best ideas. We have all the time. No, but yeah, a couple of examples of maybe, kind of without naming names, maybe some unexpected, your clients that maybe you didn't expect to handle this quite as well as they have and how they've done it.
Yeah. So, let me give you some things that I think kind of cut across the board that would drive the most value for the most number of people. I think, people that had Microsoft 365 who maybe weren't embracing all of the features, or we had a roadmap to get some of the features deployed, but they weren't done yet. And they kind of kept getting backburnered because something else seemed like it was more important. All of a sudden they went to the front burner. And I think what we've seen across the board being utilized to great effect is Microsoft Teams. I think you're hearing that probably from other folks, and it's something to absolutely look into. It's a terrific collaboration tool. It's a great way. Well, let me talk about what's amazing about Teams, and it's really, in my view, from a remote work environment, it's like a Swiss Army knife on steroids. So number one, when you're working remotely, the ability to connect with people and see them when you're talking to them is so critical. Any of us who have been on a conference call with 1, 2, 3, 10 people know how hard it is to keep track of what's going on, who's listening. Did they really get what I said? Are they paying attention? Video conferencing makes that happen. And Microsoft Teams is a simple way to generate those video conferences. When you want to communicate with your team, I know, Kevin, you're awesome about communicating and you want to send messages to your team. With Microsoft Teams, you can record a meeting or record an individual message and then distribute it out to your entire organization. And a little known fact, using Microsoft Stream, which is a part of 365, once you send it out, you can actually see who in your organization watched it, and if they watched it all the way through, to know if your message is actually connecting with them, and they can leave comments and get back to you. And it's also a great instant messaging platform where teams can collaborate together, share files securely, maintaining HIPAA and other privacies, which I know is important in the cybersecurity world. So Microsoft Teams, with the power of Microsoft 365 behind it, has been unbelievably important to leverage with our clients, and we're using it to great success across industries.
When I
So,
can tell you, sorry, Dennis, I can tell you, pardon the pun, your team has helped our team use Teams, and well before this problem occurred, and it really has been unbelievable.
well, I think we've been super fortunate, and it's like we poured gasoline on this, this kind of ember that was going to be this efficiency tool. Unfortunately, the gasoline was coronavirus, but so we were fortunate that we already had this. We already had Teams set up, and we were starting to use it. What do you do if you're an organization that didn't have a good tool to work remotely, and now all of a sudden it's like someone pulled the fire alarm and everyone had to leave their building and everybody's at home with a laptop? What do they do now?
Well, I'll take it one step further, Dennis. What happens when you realize no one has a laptop? So, I think that's been a challenge. And I think, thinking about, we have a big presence in the manufacturing environment, also with some large medical practices. And you can imagine people that maybe were in purchasing, people that maybe did some of the office work, some people in billing, maybe don't have home computers. I know that that's a little surprising to some people, but there are people that don't have, or that only have one computer at home. And so what are you doing to get those people to be able to work effectively to keep them employed and do it in a way that's secure for your business? Because one thing you don't want to do is indiscriminately start connecting people's home devices into your network. So listen, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds on technical here, but I think what we've been doing is doing kind of urgent firewall upgrades that provide people with secure remote access technology, like a VPN basically, but the type of VPN where you don't put the computer on the network, but you give someone a window into their work computer. So let's say in the office we had 50 desktops and we only had 20 laptops. Number one, I don't know if people have noticed this, or maybe this is something people could take from this interview, is there is a major run on computers through the entire supply chain. Number one, a lot of stuff is made in China, Taiwan, Vietnam, right? So because the virus hit there first, factories closed down, and because of just-in-time inventory, there wasn't a huge stockpile in the U.S. to begin with, and then everyone wanted to work at home. So we were already seeing, because of the Windows 10 kind of upgrade, or I should say because of the Windows 7 expiration and people upgrading to Windows 10, there had been a run on computers more than we'd seen in a long time, going back to the end of last year. You throw this on top of that with the supply chain disruption, and it's impossible to get a computer. I mean, we were literally driving to Best Buy and trying to buy whatever they had so we could deploy it to clients. And so it's hard to get devices. So the ability to securely leverage home computers, I think, is something we're able to do on the fly using, appropriate, business grade firewalls. And so that's been something, that we've looked at, as kind of being forced to do.
So Ari, with that happening, right, and all of us working from home and firewalls, incomplete firewalls, no firewalls at all, what scares you about this? What on behalf of people that maybe are not your clients, what do you think what are the hazards that people are going to find along the way?
So, listen, one of the things that keeps me up at night right now is with people moving so quickly and so many new technologies getting deployed. Like, we've never had a Zoom call before. And that being deployed, one thing, I don't know if you saw the article, I think I posted it on my social, or I'm going to post it shortly if I haven't done it yet. But an article just came out that there's been a huge increase of domains being registered with the word Zoom in it by hackers to try and get people to fake click on Zoom links to get their data and hack into their computers. And so, we proactively were sending out, and I recommend to everyone to take time to proactively send out to your staff and say, hey, take a minute to slow down. I know there's new technology. We're relying on email a lot more. We're a lot more remote, but now is the time to triple check every attachment. If you're not expecting it, don't open it. Call a known good number. Remind people of just email and cybersecurity best practices, because the last thing you need on top of the coronavirus is an actual computer virus inside of your organization, encrypting your data and causing further disruption to your work. The thought of that happening, it really does, keep me up at night, really on behalf of our clients. And so we've been proactive, as I think you guys know, communicating with the business leaders and also sending out to rank and file employees like, hey, just remember, be safe.
The other thing I was thinking about, Ari, and I don't know, I know you guys, I'm pretty sure you guys handle this stuff too, but we've been talking about desktops, laptops, but how about the old, the old iPhone? There's got to be some risk in here too. What should people be paying attention to on their, whether it's texts or whatever, opening an email on their phone? Is that as risky?
I mean, so far it has not been as risky. The next frontier, I think, is how they can kind of further get control of cell phones. But so far that has been relatively low risk. And most people are just doing email, or maybe you run a Zoom meeting or actually Microsoft Teams or something. But most of the data on your cell phone is stored somewhere else. And so that's not an area where I'm feeling like super duper concerned. But to your point, though, the emails that come on there that ask you to send them information or open attachments or whatever can be just as risky. And so you need to use same best practices for email, as you would anywhere else. And I think the other big, kind of component to think about too is if you're using things like OneDrive for Business or Dropbox, Google Drive, I'd be really careful that you make sure you're keeping track of what you're allowing people to use, because a lot of those things, the home versions of Dropbox and Google Drive, for instance, are not secure, are not HIPAA compliant, and really shouldn't be used for business. And so if people aren't being told and you're not monitoring for that, you can unwittingly be putting your business at risk. So you definitely want to be making sure that you're keeping track of what people are doing. And we didn't really talk about this up front, and I don't want to get too much into it, but one of the things we would strongly recommend is you take a look at your workflow. So how do you achieve what you need to achieve for your clients, right? How do you drive client value? And then figure out what are the new systems you're putting in place to do that in this new remote work world? And are each of those things secure? You just want to make sure that you're not in the rush to get things done. You're not opening up unnecessary risk for your business that could come back to bite you later.
So Ari, let me follow up on that. And I know, again, it's closing in on the end of business, and you probably have only about 7 hours left of work today. Till tomorrow. So I know we've all been trying to think, okay, what's the good that's going to come out of all of this, right? Whether it's we're going to look back fondly about spending more time with our kids or our family, or going for, strolls or whatever it might be. In your world, what do you think might? How will we look back on this in a positive way? What good will come out of this from an IT? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think that, I've been saying for a long time that the embracing of information technology is what we need to do as business leaders to stay relevant going forward. And, I believe that whether, we look back at the changes that happened in manufacturing and the automation that's happened there and lean and all that, and the manufacturers that didn't do that in the 80s and 90s, they're not here to tell that story. It's only those companies that did. And I think that professional service firms and other places need to embrace, and manufacturers too, but need to embrace information technology to be relevant in 10 and 20 years ahead. And I think that we were falling behind, to be honest, on that. We were so busy because what was happening with the economy had been so good for so long and there was it was so hard to find people. We had so many other challenges that we weren't focused on driving technology innovation and embracing that technology, which I think is so important. And I actually think that, this is a horrible way for it to have happened, but I think if one of the good things that comes out of this is our businesses embrace technology more and our people get more used to using it, I think we'll look back and realize that it was a huge advantage and helped us kind of propel us forward. And we come out of this, the companies that really embrace the technology more and figure out how to use it more, we'll find that when they come back to normal operations, the technology isn't going to go away. It's going to bring those efficiencies. And Dennis, you talked about the gasoline on the fire of those embers we were already working on. I hate that the coronavirus had to be that gasoline, but I do think that if there is a silver lining, that will be it, or part of it anyway. From the IT side, I think going in nature and spending time with our family and our kids, Kevin, is another one, but not that doesn't involve IT.
That is a perfect way to end, with some positivity. Cool. Thank you. Hey, Ari, this is awesome. So the whole idea behind this little series of interviews and conversations is just to try to bring some value to our business owner clients and just to the community. And this is great. 10 quick minutes or so, offering them some practical advice. Really appreciate it. Thanks for your time. Stay healthy, stay safe, and thank you, as always, for all the help that you provide us at Connecticut Wealth Management.
Awesome.
My
Thank you.
pleasure, Dennis. Thanks for having me.
See you,
Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate it, guys. See you.